Hot take, The Lion King is not Hamlet, it just looks like Hamlet. Like, sure, there's a couple similar plot points, and if you diagram out the characters' relationships, they look very much the same, but those are all superficial details. Because plot is not the same as plot points, and story is not the same as story beats. And when you look at how those plot points and story beats add up to create meaning, they are completely opposite stories. For example, the king's brother kills the king and takes the throne. In The Lion King, that leads to the prince believing, I did this. In Hamlet, that leads to the prince knowing, my uncle did this. The prince runs away in both stories, but for exactly the opposite reasons. And even when the plot point is almost exactly the same, the structure of the movie makes that plot point mean something completely different. Let's take the classic example. The ghost of the dead king returns to the prince to say, my brother killed me, go kill him. Okay, yeah, that sounds like exactly the same scene. Except there's a reason why in The Lion King, that is the midpoint of the movie, and in Hamlet, that is the opening. Because in The Lion King, that is the motivation Simba needs to stop running from responsibility and become the Lion King. Whereas in Hamlet, he wasn't really running from responsibility. He wasn't really doing much of anything at all. Remember, this is one of the first scenes of the entire play. And what it leads to is 3 hours of waffling about how to fulfill his father's instructions. Those are literal opposites. And that's really the difference between The Lion King and Hamlet. They are different stories, with different themes and different character arcs, and different characters. Sure, you can say that Hamlet is Simba if the only way you define those two characters is the son of the dead king and the nephew of the new king. But if you look at anything else about their character, there's no way Hamlet would have done the whole I just can't wait to be king thing, or the whole Hakuna Matata thing. He doesn't run off with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He runs away from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Sure, you can say that Ophelia is Nala if you only define those characters by the fact that they are the love interest. But even that relationship with their love interest is exactly the opposite. Hamlet is so determined to not get together with Ophelia that he screams, get thee to a nunnery. Whereas Simba has that one moment during Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Sure, you can say that Timon and Pumbaa are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern if you only define those characters as those quirky friends from out of town. You can't even define them as the quirky old friends who come to visit. Instead, Timon and Pumbaa are exactly the opposite. They are the quirky new friends who Simba goes to see. But more importantly, why are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in Hamlet? The uncle hires them to spy on Hamlet because he knows Hamlet trusts them. And Hamlet chooses not to trust them, and in the process dives deeper into mistrust. You could see some kind of parallel there to Timon and Pumbaa about how Timon and Pumbaa kind of distract Simba from his mission, but that parallel is so weak and superficial that it's not even worth doing. I could go on through each character in The Lion King, but also there's a lot of characters from Hamlet who are missing in The Lion King. Where's Horatio? Or Polonius, or Laertes, 3 of the main characters. And you might say, well, they simplified it for the kids. They only had 90 minutes, and Hamlet is 4 hours long. But that's kind of the point. Hamlet is a story about complexity. It's a story about how the world is so complex, and everyone's choices are affecting each other so deeply, and in ways that no one could have expected, that Hamlet feels like he can never truly make the right decision. If you take the complexity out of Hamlet, then that is a different story. It would be like trying to remake Groundhog Day without the time loop. Sure, it might be inspired by it, but that is a different story at that point. And the fact that Hamlet dies at the end is the point. Not to mention every other member of the entire government. The fact the play ends with Fortinbras just waltzing in, realizing that the entire government is dead at his feet, and saying, oh, I guess I'm taking over this land, is the whole point of the play, because Hamlet's actions and Hamlet's inactions led to not only the destruction of himself and his family, but his entire world, literally. And sure, Disney wasn't going to include all that death. And that is why it is a different story, because they took out the whole point and replaced it with a completely different point. So yes, the creators of The Lion King did say they were inspired by Hamlet. That is true. But we were inspired by is not the same thing as these are the same story. Because in every way that matters, these are completely opposite stories. Follow for more film talk.